So needless to say,
is like right in the middle.
he's in the middle, and he cool too. Like he cool, like he a cool guy, but he just be doing mad weird stuff.
Cause he's
Like
still over there
That
in
sounds
2024.
yes, bro.
like
That's interesting, man.
I'm not surprised.
I'm like, bro, like I'm like this who I got the
He
potential
said,
to
"I
be. So
got
that's that, bro.
I got
I
a
was
cape
like,
and
bro.
slick back hair.
Yo,
weak.
that's funny as
I was
shit.
like, this is who I have the potential to be. So like, tread lightly, you know. So that's why honestly one of the reasons why I'm staying off social media because I cannot turn into this nigga. Like I cannot. I be like, yo, he's so cool. And the thing is, everybody like him. Like he's cool. And then I get around him, I'm like, what do people like about you? And my sister be like, that's kind of how we feel about you. It's like, but nah, like, but yeah. I thought that was a funny conversation. I know that we're about to talk about our dads and what that relationship looks like.
That's funny as shit. I'm not surprised only because as you were describing some of the shit he did, I'd be like, man, that's some of the shit you do for real. So.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Like, if I didn't have a little bit of like harness to me, you know,
yeah,
I would be. And if you catch me on the right day.
Your cousin gonna end up with hair and cape.
Yeah, exactly. Do you want me to introduce this episode, or you
going right ahead? Man.
Okay,
yeah, I'll start the convo. You just
bet that. Well, welcome to I See You, Bro, episode 2, episode 3. I'll do this every time. Episode 3. Welcome to episode 3, y'all. I See You, Bro is a space dedicated to talking about topics that we generally don't get to talk about. It's a safe space. It's a brave space. It's a space for people that love men of color and people that know men of color. You don't have to be a man of color to be here. You just have to care about our progression in order to be here. So shout out to everybody that's listening. Welcome to the space.
Good to see y'all.
You know, I like to say something a little smart. If you're too rigid, get out. This ain't the conversation for you.
So yeah, today's topics are fatherhood and masculinity. Want to talk about one and the other, and I hope to intertwine the two within our conversation as well. Brenten, thank you for opening or breaking the ice with that story. That was funny.
And then to even really now, like you said, because now you're gonna express your story so people can kind of understand.
Yeah,
your
like,
relationship with your dad.
Yeah,
I love my daddy. He's
for
cool.
sure. Like,
I hope you don't listen.
So I wanted to start off. I wanted to start off with just like your experiences growing up, right? I'll start with myself, like, but I wanted to just ask generally, like, your experiences growing up. You know, all of us come from different backgrounds. I come from a 2-parent home, father, mother. Mars, you said you were living with your mother and your stepfather at first, and then you went on to live with your father and then your stepmother later. So your experience is different. And then Brenten, just from knowing you, you said that you just have a wild story. I don't even like, but basically you grew up, you know, with your mom, a single black mother. So your experience is unique as well. We'll let you tell your story and all that, because, you know, for the people to know. But just wanted to ask, like, how have those experiences shaped you as a man? And for me, I'd like to say I was able to see, I mean, as a father, I'm seeing it now because my son, he's learning to be a human by watching me, you know, and by watching his mom. So he's learning how to be a human through us first before he steps out into the world, and kind of learns, you know, from other people's perspectives, livelihoods, and things of that nature. So it gave me like, okay, this is a human. This is how I'm watching his mannerisms. I'm watching, you know, how people love him, how he leads, you know, a household. Good, bad, and ugly, I saw it, but I feel like I got I got a start into like who I wanted to become through watching him, right? And you know, you end up shedding some of those things off as you grow, and we'll touch on that later, but I feel like it gave me a lot to go off of, right? Like a man that leads, a man that works very hard, a man that wants better for himself and his family. I was able to see all those things very, very early on, and I think that they helped shape me into, you know, the type of man I am today. I'm someone that is always going to continue to try to push forward. I despise settling in any form or fashion. I hate even feeling like I'm settling in any way, because to me that's like, okay, I didn't do my best to get the best out of whatever this is, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it just helped me in such a way that I feel I had a great example of what a man, a father is supposed to be in this society. He's had many struggles of his own, but he's here today. He's persevered through it all, right? And even no matter how ugly it's gotten, at some points, I can still lean on the fact that he's made it through today, right? Like he's alive today through all his worst battles, personally, internally or externally. And it kind of helps me continue to keep going too. Because he's just somebody that I've never seen give up at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, just want to open the floor for y'all to kind of speak on a little bit about your experiences and kind of how that has shaped you as a man today. And then we'll circle back to kind of speak on what we had to shed to become our own man.
Yeah.
So
yeah. You want to go, Mars, or?
You good.
Okay, yeah. So
I'm in the listening mood.
growing up, it was just my mom. I was raised by my mother, but my grandfather kind of stepped in as a father figure. He was very much your standard provider, right? Like just a very traditional black man. He's from Georgia. He only finished the 7th grade. And then he worked for the rest of his life until he got grown enough to go into the military. He went into the military, retired Navy. Then right after the Navy, he went into the shipyard, retired shipyard. And then after he retired shipyard, he started working again in his 70s.
God, damn.
So he is a man that really works hard, right? He has always, I will hear about it, but there's never been a time where I have asked my grandfather for something and I didn't get it. The only thing that I did, I got what I asked for, but I also, I heard it too. I got a lesson for it, right? Not a very empathetic man. That's one thing that I remember. Even now, he doesn't really process his emotions. He does it very stoic, right? Not really affirming, right? But if you know men and you know people, you know that our heart is where our things are, right? You can kind of tell. I knew that he loved me based off of what he gave me, right? And outside of that, I wouldn't have really known, right? But I'm like, my grandfather, he has never denied me. So, how hard I work comes from him, right? How I look at money, right? How I look at how I take care of people around me, right? You're gonna hear my opinion, but you're also gonna get what you ask for, right? But I also I really appreciated the fact that he stepped into that role, because he actually could have went the other way. So, even him being who he is in my life, although my father wasn't around, that was a great example of what a man should be, even if he wasn't your father. And so the way that I show up for even my friends' kids, right, that may not have their fathers. I have a friend that we've been friends since high school. She's a single mom and has boys, and it's you actually don't have to be a dad to be a dad, right?
Yeah.
You don't.
You just have to a father figure.
Right,
You know what I'm
exactly.
saying?
And so I take data. We talk about, just what it looks like to take data. And so as a kid, I took data from that was who I was taking data from, was my grandfather, right? And it allowed me to really be who I am today, and it has impacted the way that I take care of people, how I provide for people. But we'll get on to it'll be later on in the conversation when I talk about the cons of that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's good and bad.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm getting. But yeah, go ahead, Mars.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because I got a little bit of both of these ideas, and stuff like that, from basically being able to see my mom first and then my father second, in a sense, right? Because they got divorced when me and my twin brother, at a younger age. which is 2. So that didn't give us any really coherent times for them in itself, right? So the way the court was set, I got split with my mom until I turned 10, and then when I turned 10, I had to go move with my dad. And both of them had longtime significant others through our time being with them. So I had a stepdad from young to 10, and then I had a stepmom from 10 to obviously, and they're still around. So that kind of gives an experience on kind of like seeing. I always had a father figure around, like a house father figure, shall I say, and then transition to my actual dad being my father figure, which I was looking forward to as a young man, right? So how it shaped me was, I really didn't, until I turned 10 to live with him, I didn't really take any heed to any real like other man around, shall I say. And I think that kind of made me resentful for a while, not against men in that frame, but I knew who my dad was, right? And especially when he wasn't there, I felt a lot similar to like how you felt with your granddad, was that he wasn't there much, but he was there, right? And especially when I moved with him, he was in the military, and so he was just retiring, but then he got. What, you got a question?
Yeah, I have a question.
You can ask it.
So I want to ask both of y'all this, because I can always tell when there's a lack of male influence in men's life based off of how accountable they are, right? Like I can have a conversation with a man and I could be like, bro, and like I can immediately tell like how he receives that information. I'm like, you never had a man tell you about yourself.
Sometimes, yeah.
So I want to ask, because I know it was for me. Do you think that your father not being around until you're 10, or you like moving into your father turning 10, do you feel like that has translated into the way that you receive things from me?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. And so like that's kind of what I was saying when I knew that there was a certain effect on me from me not taking heed to any of like the men around me's like advice, shall I say, you know what I mean? And kind of understanding that like I know my dad, like, it wasn't like I'm not gonna respect you, because I respected people. I was just brought up to respect. My mom taught me that manners and all that. And my stepdad has been around. He's still here, and married to my mom. So he's been around for majority of my life, and as I was young. So unfortunately, me being a young kid and knowing that I have a father that I am in communication with and see him every summer. And like you said, I know he loves me because he sends gifts and all this stuff, right? Yeah, and I really do understand that feeling, because it's like I try not to be that kind of loving. Like I want my daughters to kind of like see a different kind of loving from me.
Yes.
And so I think that did shape that experience with my father, for sure shaped how I try to love. You know what I mean? And not to say that I haven't learned. I've learned plenty of things from my father when I finally was able to be with him. But one thing I noticed when I got 10, and that's one thing he had to do, was had to start telling me about myself as a young man, right?
And that's
so
important as hell.
Yeah, and he had to start raising 2 young men, right? So that actually was a huge experience for him too. After 10 years, of not really living with us too, but you can just see the shift and feel the shift of coming from a household where you think you the man, to hold on a second, this is my father, and I've taken heed of what he's saying, and so a couple of things I know I got from my dad for sure is the way his mindset, a lot, and a lot of things, like he has like a open mindset on, like, I think, understanding.
Is that where your misfit comes from?
Yes, and
Okay.
it's kind of weird. It doesn't really come from him like that, or like my granddad. My granddad's a humanitarian, so it's just all about like understanding. I think it is, or the want to understand other people and like their reasoning, their livelihoods, right? And I think my dad has that for sure in him, and then my granddad definitely has that, being a humanitarian. So, that kind of mindset of just trying to love on people, because my dad's a lover too, and I know that for sure. People gravitate towards him as well, kind of as you told about your dad. So I think some of that stuff is genetic. It's like spiritually genetic. You know what I mean? Like auras, where people gravitate towards your family, right? It's really weird, but I feel that too.
Do you feel that about like spiritual struggles too, like things
Oh,
that
yeah.
you struggle,
Yeah.
like they're past. Do you
Yeah.
believe?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Because there's some things that I'm struggling with. I'm like, that definitely came from that
Like
horror of a
what-
father of mine.
what
I'm kidding.
my belief is that the traumas, right? The
Mhm.
demons that our fathers, grandfathers, and so on and so forth didn't deal with,
It's gonna
or
get passed down.
it's going to get passed
Yeah.
down
It's gonna
one
get
way,
seen.
one way or another. It's getting passed down to the next
And then I
generation,
feel like it's genetic. Too.
and then it's on them.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Because alcoholism, as I speak to you, alcoholism was heavy in my family.
From your
Heavy.
yeah.
Fathers, mothers,
Everybody,
cousins,
yeah.
uncle, like everybody drinks, and everybody like they find a reason to drink.
Mm-hmm.
They just love to drink, right?
You know how we were talking about,
And-
not to
and-
cut you off real quick, but you know how we were talking about evolutionary stuff, right,
Mhm.
the other day? And so one thing about genetics is genetics evolve as well, right, within family groups, right? So like one
Yeah,
thing
my parents ain't this tall.
Yeah.
Nah, I'm dead ass. My dad 5'8",
You're
my mom 5'3". I'm
you're
6'1".
You're an anomaly. But no, usually somewhere down the line in genetics, somebody else was super.
No,
tall,
I
you
know, I get that.
But no, but like when you talk about like alcoholism and how that can get passed down, it's like alcohol in itself can get passed down to where it tastes different, like not
Mhm.
different on your tongue than other people, but it excites you.
It's
exactly
more,
it hits that
it's-
hormone.
Yeah, and my mom, when I was 13, tried to in an airport, got me to take a sip of Brugal, which is a Dominican rum.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, here, so that you will never have a taste for it later. I did.
Yeah.
You
Because
did.
what she wanted it to taste like for me,
Mm-hmm.
like as sour and like, for me to be, I don't like it. It tasted kind of good. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna lie. But I get what she was trying to do. But like you said, it gets passed down to where it's so many, and it just tastes different, right?
ways,
Like,
yeah.
and when I stopped and tried to like drink
Mhm.
it again, it tastes way different.
Yeah.
Way different.
That's why I think it's important for, and not to move too fast on the conversation, but that's why I think it's important for people that have not had their fathers in their lives or great relationships with their fathers to seek out a relationship. It doesn't have to look exactly the way that you want it to, but one of the reasons why I wanted to build a relationship with my father is so I could see who I had the potential to become, good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so after like meeting,
Smart at
yeah,
that point,
right.
right?
That's
And so
So your
like
survival.
I didn't actually have a full conversation until I was like 21 with my father, right? And then maybe again when I was 25. And at 25, I would begin to study him, and I would take out the judgment, right? And I would be like, oh, that's you. And that you have the potential to be that. And even to your point of like certain things being passed down, it's like, oh, that's me all day.
Yeah.
Like, and like my dad, like, very simple man, very exciting, like intriguing man, very like mysterious, but funny when you get to know him, but also very just like cool, like just good. And he will sit on his couch, again, I hope you don't listen to this, and like be good there.
Oh, that's my
He
pops all
he will be good
day.
there, bro. And I'm like,
All day.
I went through a week last week, and I'm like, I'm actually just good here. I still feel I'm still fighting through that. Like I'm actually just good here. You just give me a J and a drink, and I'm good. Like that's my type of good time. And I'm realizing, like, bro, there's like God has so much more for you than that. Like, which is not a bad thing, right? I'm not
sitting down and doing that is not bad.
It's not bad, but if that becomes who you are,
yeah,
you
that
know
can't
what I
become
mean?
your identity. It can just be something that you do. Because one thing I got from my pops to your to your point is like he loves himself a good movie.
Yeah.
Like I love me a good movie.
Mhm.
Like I could sit down and watch a good movie. You feel me? But I can't do that all day.
All day.
I can't.
Like,
I can't do. My parents, they could do that
restless.
all day.
mhm.
Me, I got to do something.
Yeah.
But I get to your point, and that was smart advice too. Is like seek out who they are. It doesn't have to be a perfect
Smart.
relationship, but you
Yeah.
have to know.
You don't need any relationship.
You
should
just have
know
you just have to know yourself. It helps
Yeah.
you know a little bit more about
Yes,
yourself.
yes,
Because like to you, I put on a different lens when looking at my father. The older that I got, when I was working
Mhm.
with my father, I'm like, damn, bro, you do all this shit every day
Yeah,
to
you
help
get a
feed
new-
us, to clothe us. Like, bro,
A new appreciation.
every fucking
Mhm.
day for how many years?
Mm-hmm.
So and you see like his work ethic, like when he would come home and say like, yeah, I barely ate. I'd be like, what you mean you barely ate? Nigga, no, when I work with this nigga, like, bro,
Mm-hmm.
it was his work
Bro,
ethic is insane.
I did
And
construction, bro. Some Latinos don't even work
yeah,
it, like the.
yeah, it's and he worked in HVAC. So
Mm,
like just that work ethic,
tedious.
I was like, that's what I need.
That's you.
Yeah, and like I see myself in that to the point where I have to stop myself sometimes because I will burn out. I will work until I burn out, and then I get my rest.
Yeah.
And I've been a lot more conscious of that lately. I don't want to get too far ahead because this is something I wanted to touch upon too. So I'll ask y'all. I mean, I can start and finish off what I was saying, but I want to know, like, what did you have to shed from your father figures as you were becoming your own man? And like, I'll start, like, for me, like I was saying, is my work ethic can be insane. Like, people will look at me crazy by how much I love to work and how long I can work
You wanna get stuff
without
done.
having any issue.
Mm-hmm.
That early in my 20s caused for health issues to where I'd get random nosebleeds. I'd be very, very stressed. I could never sleep right. And it taught me that I can work like this, won't live a very long life like this. I See You, Bro is brought to you by the Can Foundation. The Can Foundation is an arts nonprofit organization founded by artists for artists.
The CAN is dedicated to building sustainable careers for the creative class through artist development, arts education, and public art projects.
By creating a community, they empower artists, foster creativity, and contribute to the sustainable growth of the artistic ecosystem at large. To learn more about the Can Foundation, visit their Instagram, Contemporary Arts Network, or their website at thecontemporaryartsnetwork.com.
Do you
Right?
think you're obsessed with results?
I think I can. So at that time, I was very keen on results because at that point in my life, results to me meant that like I had just come off like basketball and playing all that, so like results matter, right? So like to me, it's like growing up, if you did well in basketball, like all the other shit will kind of take care of itself, or they'll take care of it for you, right? So I always felt like as long as you produce results, you'll be taken care of in some way or fashion, right? So I would always try to get that result and work my ass off for it. As I got older, and this goes with the shedding of, what I feel like I learned from my pops is like, I fell more in love with the journey and what that journey brought me in the process, right? The growth that I experienced while accomplishing that goal or seeing it through. And that allowed for my goals to get bigger. It allowed for me to be more patient and have more faith
I feel
in what I was doing.
Enjoying the journey that way, when you really finally understand that,
you get this.
The result gets smacked, like the result just smacks you in the face.
Bro, you
You're
get
like,
this.
oh,
You
snap.
literally get this.
Yeah, I forgot.
And
this is what I was going towards.
and you're not
You know?
so stressed about it. You're just doing.
Yeah.
You're just doing the work. I can go to sleep every night knowing I'm doing the work, but I had to shed that work till I die mentality because I was very much digging myself an early grave working that way. So to kind of preserve myself, I would say I had to shed that. The alcohol thing. It was not uncommon for my dad to have one or two or three during the weekday, right? It was not uncommon for them to just get drunk as hell on the weekends, right? Or drink all day. And I would just see him casually. We'll be playing basketball. I have a Gatorade, he has a beer. Like, you know what I'm saying? We playing pool. I have a water, he has a beer. Like,
hey, bro, it's Sabbath.
and it's just, it was so casual. But when I had a son, right, it's my turn. I have that baton now, and I decided I'm not going to let him just casually see me drink. This is not something that just happens around here all the time. Like, over dinner, we'll have wine. At an outing, rarely, might have a couple, but he's never gonna see me just drinking beer just because it's a thing to do. Because that's not the example that I want to set. So that had to do with some of the shedding as well. And I'm pretty sure we can go all day with this, but what are a couple things that y'all felt y'all have had to shed from your father figures, your father and grandfather, you know, your stepfather and father, like, and like, what have you had to shed to become the man that you are today?
One of the things that I'm still actively shedding is performance-based, like performance-based being. Like I mentioned, like my grandfather, you know, being that man in my life up till I was an adult. He always did things, right? He never really talked to me unless things were wrong, you know? He never really like had heart-to-hearts with me, you know? I feel like he never really got to know me, and even now, like I have questions. I'm like, well, are you like what? Why do you act like that? Are you really sad or are you just mean? You know? But like one of the things that I did see from him is like how well he did things for other people, right? And so that's what I took on. And growing up, it's like I am valuable based off of what I can do for you. And so it created this like this performance-based metric for me that if I could show up for you well, I was gonna always be valuable to you, right? If I was able to do this right and change the atmosphere, you're always gonna like me. I don't give a shit now. But that's, like I said, that's something that I consistently have to take off of me, where it's like one of the things that I actually wanted from my father and from my grandfather is like, I want to see who you are outside of the providing. Because I actually could have, like, looking back, you wasn't no millionaire, so I could have did without. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, and so like I have this desire for people to know me outside of the mask and how I show up for you. Like, I need you to know that I'm a full human being just like you are, which will ultimately make you love me more because you see that I'm human, right? And so that's why I've made it my business to be authentic in every form that I am, because I watched the men in my life perform so much. And now not only have they created this standard for other men to have to reach that, but it's wrong. But like I so wish that men and black men in particular would give them a space, would give themselves, like, bump everybody else, but give themselves a space to be human. And so I'm having to shed like this non-human superhero syndrome where I have to show up one way in the 12 different spaces that I take up. It's like, no. I am the ship. You follow my lead. I don't follow the standards that, and I feel like that's essentially kind of like what my father and my grandfather did. They stuck to this traditional man role. Like, I need to provide for my family, but ultimately it did them a disservice, and it did the people under them a disservice, because it's like now I'm trying to get to know like my grandfather, and it's like, I want to know who you are.
Yeah. But it's do you think that it? How do I want to say this?
I know times have a lot to do with it too.
Yeah,
like,
I think the times, but also this gives you the opportunity to be very intentional about
exactly
how your grandchildren get to know you,
exactly,
or your nieces and nephews get to know you,
and my family in general. Like,
exactly.
I actually have had to have there's an accountability with it, right? Because and that's the kind of man that I want to be, and that I wish I would have saw from my father or my grandfather. Like, hey, where I am right now is not a great space. That's okay. This is how I need to show up, and this is how I need you to walk with me on this journey. It may not be like this forever. It may be like this for a short period of time, but I think that would have allowed me to see the human value in people, right? Beyond what they can actually do for me. And like you said, they're not just that, but in a lot of ways, like with the drinking, like my family, and my
motherfucker love to drink, boy.
Bro, I was drinking. I was, as you were talking, I was thinking, I was like, bro, I was drinking Paul Masson in college. Like, I was drinking brandy, like peach. You get what I'm saying? I was doing Paul Masson and orange juice when I was
Incredible Hulks.
You feel me, bro? Like, I was like, and now I'm thinking to myself, like, is that the type of man that you want to be? Always putting something to your lips, always feeling like in order to be in a space you have to drink. And that actually I realized that was correlated to me feeling like I always had to be more than human, that I had to show up a certain type of way in these spaces, right? And so as I'm like shedding performance based like being, I'm also shedding small things like drinking before I go somewhere. Like, and I realized I was doing that because I actually didn't feel like I I didn't feel like myself, and I had to be a certain way in order to go.
And if you didn't feel like yourself that day,
Then I
that
couldn't.
yeah.
I was less valuable, right? And so like I'm learning to shed that, like, which is why I think this space has been so transformative.
You've been
to
doing
me.
well, man. You've been
Thank
doing
you,
well.
bro. Thank you, bro. I'm like, fuck these niggas. They're like, they about to get what they gonna get. Like, not nothing against y'all, right? But everything for me, it's more along the lines of
Gotta
like,
be your
I've
space where
I've
you can
spent
take
so
your
much.
cape off.
I've spent so much time as a man taking care of everybody else with my brain and like how things flow out of me, that it's like that's not the kind of man that I want to be. I want people to love me in every form. I want to be able. That's why we had that conversation at lunch the other day where it was like, hey y'all, I may not look like this in the next few years, but like bear with me and walk with me through this season because like I'm human and you like I got it. And so
You got to understand though too is like you showing up as you, it makes room for, and it'll clearly show you who accepts you and who doesn't.
Bro.
And we've been telling you from the beginning, man, show up however you want, however you're feeling that day, just show up, cause that's you.
Yeah.
You don't have to be none of that, cause I see right through that shit, and I'm probably gonna call it out.
Yeah,
Like
you have a few times.
Yeah, cause it just doesn't. You can feel it, and if
Yeah.
you're not being you, it feels like no part of you at that time is authentic. It doesn't feel like it's coming from the root, from the source, which is you, and it's so yeah, just keep on showing up, man, as yourself, however it is, however that looks like.
And shout out to the people that are shedding performance based. Like I feel like that's a lot of culture, right?
Yeah.
Everyone is showing up in this mask, and it's like, and it's making it so much harder for the real ones. Like it's making it so much harder because I'm realizing like immediately I can tell, like you said, like I can tell in a conversation with somebody like, oh, because I've been there, and even with my father, like he does a great job of minding his business. Now that's one thing I will say about my dad. When he's not in a good space, he does not.
From New York?
No, he's not. He don't smear himself on you. Like he does not smear his emotion. He actually retreats and isolates, and nobody knows where he is, right? But also, I'm trying to shed that as well because it's like, no, you need to be in community. You don't have to. You get to feel bad and sad. You communicate that to your community and the people that you're around. And if they love you, they will walk with you. If they don't, they can go. And to your point, like in me shedding this performance thing that I've learned from the men in my life, I've also learned like that they can love me or they can't. And it makes the process a lot faster. And it makes the environments that I'm sitting in a lot stronger. Cause it's like, I don't feel safe with you, cool. I don't gotta be there. So yeah. But Mars, what are some of the things that you're trying to shed from?
A lot, man. To be honest, like I said, I love being in this space because I can listen to y'all mid-conversation and just kind of like evolve. You feel me? And so, like, one thing I think I'm kind of coming to the grips of is my stepdad was a cop, right? And so, like, in Atlanta.
So you had military, pops, and then you had
he was Air Force, and then he was a cop. So
and then your pops was in the military.
And my dad was in the military. Yeah, so I kind of always had that
strict in that motherfucker.
Structures. And he was a cop, and I don't think I really ever really not only that he wasn't my father that I'm thinking as a young man. I also didn't give him respect because he was a cop too, as a young black kid.
Especially once you started hearing NWA, boy, I already know.
Stuff,
it was up.
So, it unfortunately, I feel like I didn't give him any space, but I feel like in this time I'm shedding like old ideals that I thought, you know what I mean, and not just from that because I realized when you don't get to see a lot of times when we don't have such father figures, we're able to see them in their everyday life. And so that's one thing that you were fortunate enough, I believe, to see your father figures, right? Because
mhm.
I think I don't remember which episode, but we talked a little bit about how we're gonna take a little bit from each one of our father figures, or the people that we idolize. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right,
We'll
right,
take a little bit. Oh, they have something I would like, so I want to take that, right?
right.
And then when we're not doing that at all, or not respecting the person at all, we don't even take anything from them. So I
Good
think,
or bad, yeah.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
think that's one thing that I didn't allow myself to do as a young man. But when I finally lived with my dad, I still didn't really get to see him be human until like being a senior in high school,
Oh,
because
okay.
he brought me. He was a JRTC instructor, which is another thing like that showed me to love on people, right?
Mhm,
Everybody's like, as a JRTC instructor, he's a lot of people's father figure, the
mhm.
girls and the boys there,
Yeah.
and so they loved him, man, you know what I mean? And so that was another thing that brought me to like kind of like who I am today. I didn't come straight here, but it started like, even my dad.
I don't think none of us.
Nah,
For real.
nah. But I mean, like, I think this is kind of like something that is like influencing people, like you said, like
Mhm,
loving on people
mhm,
for me, and then for you is just being around
mhm,
people. You know what I
mhm,
mean, and
mhm.
and kind of changing the aura of the room for you. You
Right,
know what I mean,
right.
and it all revolves around masses of people, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I think shedding the fact that we think we know, even though we spend a bunch of time with people, who they are,
Mhm,
right? And what our figures are, because they're not necessarily just our influence. They're something. They're like people are technically like somebody in a store. They're
yeah,
items in a store,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
You basically take what you want, right? They're a grocery store, and you
Mhm.
take what you want from them, and then you leave some stuff on the shelf, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so
This
if we
this
don't want
sounds
to
worse
go at
than what it
all,
really is,
That's
though.
what I
oh
was
no,
Brandon.
it's
thinking, but I was
not. But
gonna let him finish.
it's little. But you understand
Yeah,
that,
No,
right.
right?
I
So
understand what
if
you're.
we don't like the grocery store at all, or like what it's about, we won't ever go.
Right.
And so we're not getting anything from them, kind of like how I just said. So like if it's a grocery store, we'd be like, all right, I can like some things in here. Oh, I really want this and I really want that. And if we can afford them, which is put in the work to get that attribute, we kind of, grab them and pay for them. So I think realizing that you have to not take everything people as face value. We try to take
Mhm.
not just things as face value, but people as face
Take what you
value.
can get. Take what
But you have to
mhm.
spend time with them
Yeah.
to actually understand who they are, instead of just going into the grocery store to buy. We go into the grocery store to buy. We don't go into the grocery store to window shop most of the time,
Mhm.
right? And to figure out, oh, well, maybe next time I'm gonna take that, and oh, maybe this isn't something I really wanted. Because I think if we spent more time in the grocery store, we'd actually understand better how to use it, right?
Mm.
And what more to take from that person, right?
Mhm.
Instead of just that face value of what looks good and what shouts out to me.
I see what you're saying. Where it's like, everything doesn't necessarily have to be good or bad.
Yeah.
Like there are good and bad things in everything,
Mm-hmm.
but just like spending the time with that individual, right?
Yeah.
To
See
see
what's
like
best for you.
to see what's best for you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And collect that data, kind of
to
like how
collect that-
you said,
yeah.
right? Because not only I'm not necessarily genetically connected to my stepdad, but I am connected to him in my experience and then how I react and pick up things and stuff,
Mhm.
like
Mm-hmm.
and respond to people, because that happens like
I wanted
very
to ask
secretly.
something. Have y'all ever seen your fathers or grandfathers? Have y'all ever seen them cry at all?
I saw my dad cry once, yes,
Once?
and it was about his mom who committed suicide, so my grandmother.
Okay.
And so, yeah, that was like weird because, okay, so let me tell you the story. We had just moved in with my dad. We were talking about maybe 6 months, and my brother. We're both obviously mama's boys because
Mhm.
we did live with our mom, my twin brother, and so. But my twin brother was more open about his crying, and I felt like I was more on that men don't cry, kind of tough
Mhm.
kind.
Yeah.
But not only that, that was kind of me, and I never really cried unless I was extremely upset, like mad. That's when I would cry back then. You know what I mean? And so my brother had been crying multiple nights and kind of stuff. He would do that since we were younger, even
Mhm.
when we would go to live with not live with my dad,
You
but
say
stay
he
with.
always been a crybaby.
Yeah.
Yo,
If
bro.
you, if
he
you're,
would
if
he
you're
would
hearing
cry,
this,
bro. He would cry in his sleep, right in the middle of the night. Man, just loud, wailing, right? Wake me up every time,
Mhm.
But no, we were mama's boys, right? And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
spending any time away from your mom, you're gonna feel a certain type of way. My brother wasn't afraid to let it out as we were kids, right?
Mm.
Now it looks way different. Like I'm more of the sensitive person, and that's always been that way. but being together,
how
I
you
get to see
display
him.
it, yeah.
You know what I mean? See him as a human. And so my dad was like, "Yo, you gotta stop all that crying and stuff. Not in like a manly way, but in like a an empathetic way, right?" And so he brought us into his room one night, and he was just sitting on his bed, and he's talking to us. You're like, you know what? I understand the crying. You know,
Yeah.
he's like, I miss my mom. You know, and that kind of, I feel like that hit him. You feel me? Like I feel like he felt what he was saying in that moment, right? And I'm a little choked up saying the story because that was the first time I saw my dad cry, and it was like I think we were like 10 and a half or 11 because we had just got there.
Was had his mom passed by?
Yeah, his mom committed suicide when he was
Oh,
a
you
young
did
man.
say okay. Oh,
When
wow.
he was a young
wow.
man, when my grandfather was going through all that stuff after the Olympics
Wow.
and all that, a whole bunch of stuff happened. But yeah,
Fuck.
she ended up committing suicide early in my dad's life. And
after
so,
after your grand like
after the Olympics, yeah, because
there was so much.
there's pressure. There was, my granddad lost a bunch of jobs
Mhm.
and they blackballed him, so he couldn't get jobs.
Mhm, mhm.
You understand what I'm saying? So they split.
Are we?
and-
Do you care if I mention who your
I don't
grandfather?
mind. I don't mind
Like,
at all.
so anybody who's listening, just for context, Mars is the grandson of John Carlos,
Correct, yeah.
who was one of the torch holders and just bringing and ushering in equality into the Olympics, right? And so he
Yeah.
was like an
And
influencer.
humanity in itself, right?
Right, and so he has an organization. Mars has a nonprofit organization called the John Carlos for Humanity organization.
Yeah, we're working to make it a nonprofit, but it's
Okay.
definitely a community event we're doing every year.
Yeah, and so he
annually.
he does this event every year, and so I'm mentioning that
Appreciate
because like I know that you don't share that often. I just
Yeah.
think that's a cool
See,
tidbit.
that's
But
another
also,
thing.
it's like I didn't realize that him taking this leap of
Like what effect it had, right?
what effect
Yeah,
it had,
there's a
and so
lot.
that's so I'm.
A lot.
This is my first time hearing this part of the story.
Yeah, I got
So
chills.
there's a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah, no, there's a lot to that story.
So your dad, I'm also interested in that because your father also probably saw what the effects of what it
On his
took
dad.
on what it took to take risk
On
on
his-
like the
yeah.
effects of risk taking.
Exactly, and yeah, and would he take risks that big, seeing the effect? Yeah.
That it would have on the people around him. Do you think that has? Well, I know it has in our conversation. Do you think that has like really changed how you take risk or the way that you look at risk?
I See You Bro is brought to you by City Center at Oyster Point. Discover the peninsula's best kept secret at City Center at Oyster Point in Newport News. Experience their growing culinary scene with new restaurants such as Satay and Amaro Italian Bistro, or grab small bites at Tinto Wine and Cheese.
City Center regularly hosts events like free fitness classes, open mic night at Cure Coffee, and Latin dance night at Sauce's Mexican Grill. You can even treat yourself to some self-care at the Eyelash and Eyebrow Bar, or catch a movie at Cinemark. There's also the Contemporary Arts Network Gallery, a haven for art enthusiasts.
City Center isn't just a hotspot. It is the up-and-coming foodie paradise and Peninsula's best-kept secret. Whether you're going out for date night or family-friendly fun, City Center is the gem you've been looking for. Stop by and discover why City Center at Oyster Point in Newport News is your perfect destination for any occasion. For more information, check out their website, citycenter@oysterpoint.com, or give them a follow at citycenter at Oyster Point.
I'll tell you this,
Was it like a 50-50, like right there?
No, it was never. I never tried to reach towards my granddad because I felt his presence as the civil rights, hero
Right,
and
right,
movement.
right.
Especially from my dad who held his dad in an
Mhm.
iconic role, of course, and he got to see everything. So I just was like, I didn't want to be like a moocher growing up.
okay.
Like, just you have weird ideals as
Mhm,
as a
mhm,
growing up,
mhm,
and then
mhm.
you don't know which ideal is gonna finally smack you in the face. So when you're like, wait. Why did I think that way?
Mhm.
You never know what year in your life that's going to happen or if ever, but you have to get to that specific ideal. But now when I got older, I kind of feel like I'm like, no, it's not about being a moocher. It's about realizing what he did and the balls he had to do that. And so I always thought, like, when I started thinking about it, would I have the balls to get on the stand like that, put my fist
Right,
up,
right.
tell people exactly how I'm thinking out of turn, shall I say? Like, because you know, I mean, though it was respectful.
So it inspired you.
It's very inspiring.
Yeah.
Very inspiring. It inspired me now to start doing, because now I'm starting to think about it. It inspired me to, that John Carlos Run for Humanity was created in 5 months. And then we did our first community event.
Do you think that your dad, and Eury, I'll let you slide to our other question after this, but do you feel like your dad, he kind of suffered the negative like effects of like seeing his dad being so inspiring, like
Yeah.
where it kind of
plenty a
like
lot.
made him,
At the time, he was getting, you know, the paparazzi and everybody wanted to talk to him. Then all of that went away, and then
Mm-hmm.
he saw his father become the guy without a job and, you know, working hard.
Yeah.
And you know, kind of like what Eury saw, he got to see him as more human than, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, so that's finally like when he was talking about his mom, my dad and himself talking about his mom was the first time and the last time I saw him.
Wow.
The last time I saw him
Really?
cry. And that's,
Yeah.
you're talking about 10 years old. And so I know what makes him cry or made him cry at that time, and I don't think I was able to see emotion release. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, a lot of
from
our
him or my stepdad. My stepdad has a lot of emotions, but a lot of his emotions were anger. You know, and now I want to love him. I find myself really loving on him in a space to where I'm like, I understand you now as a human. You know,
Yeah.
and I feel like I never gave you a chance to be a father figure, just a father figure, not my father specifically, even though he was, right, for a group of time, but just even giving him a chance. And so emotionally is something that I would like to shed. My ideals of emotional stability or emotional, like, expression,
Yeah.
because I'm right now to this day I'm learning that I got stuff from my stepdad and I got stuff from my dad as far as, you know, it goes with emotional.
Yeah, I'm learning that. To your point, I have never seen my grandfather cry. I maybe have seen him shed one tear. One.
I've heard of my dad crying.
Right. Like I've never
It's a myth.
even
like-
even my brother, like I saw him cry for the first time this weekend. Our grandmother passed, right? Like and I feel so crazy crying because I'm a crier. I have cried every like
I am now.
I can't wait to get back on
I had
Instagram.
to get that way.
I can't wait to get back on Instagram because I have my caption. You know, I think about content, but because I'm off, I'm like, you know, my creative. I was like, I can't. My first post back to Instagram would be like, you know, for the first part of this year, this black boy did not have joy. You know, and that's my thing, having joy, and I always want to show that. But I'm also realizing a part of me and who I am and my joy is also like my emotional identity, right? Like I get to cry.
Yeah.
I get to really show those
have
different.
to.
I'm a crier. I have cried every single. Today was probably the first day that I didn't cry.
I told somebody manifestation and release go hand in hand.
I feel like that's crying. To be honest, like for any man that's out there, listen. It's a spiritual thing. You know what I mean? I feel like crying is a spiritual thing. I feel like it's your spirit crying out on behalf of your flesh, right? And I think that sometimes when you cry, like oftentimes I know that I'm sad, and because people haven't really in my father figures, I'm really learning my emotions now as an adult, right? And so I'm actually like sometimes I actually don't know what's wrong with me, and so I have to say, you're sad right now. You know, you're upset right now. And the moment that I acknowledge that, I go ahead and release it. And sometimes I don't always fully understand why I'm sad or why I'm frustrated. But what I do know is that there is a power in that release.
Yeah, for
There's
sure.
a power in the way that
I love how you just said that, man.
What?
I don't know why I'm so emotional sometimes. You know, like, why am I sad? Why am I upset? Or why am I drained? Right? You know what I mean? And so, like, that's really powerful. But there's so much power in that release when you can finally find it in your journey to learn when to release and learn when it's bottled up. And I think that's what happens for my emotion. It just anger, upsetness. It just like I get full with that emotion.
Eury, what does your emotional identity look like right now?
Where'd you learn it from too?
Like I said, I heard of my father crying back in 2005. We had a very close family friend, Joel, back in Jersey, who went out for a night drinking, and he slipped and fell, and he hit his head, and he fell unconscious outside and froze to death.
Wow.
So I remember getting the news. I remember my dad telling us with a very, very straight face. You could tell he's upset, right?
Yeah.
But he just goes in the bathroom, comes out probably like 15, 20 minutes. I don't know.
He ran the water.
Like, yeah, he just went into the bathroom, came out, nothing. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you would have thought he just went do his business or whatever. But I never once saw my dad like cry
Or
like
grieve.
I've never seen him. My mom, she's expressed that he has, like when our great grandfather died, and stuff like that. So she's expressed that he has, but by that time I'm already like 25.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But like growing up, and yeah, it was rarely ever saw that. So I carried that myself, right? I was not emotional in the sense that I'd get sad at things. I just get really angry at shit.
Yeah.
And to your point, when I get really angry, that's when you'd see tears, right? Because I'd get so I didn't know what to do, because it's either I cry right now or I try to burn everything down. Like like somehow this is like this getting resolved, right? But yeah, I carried that with me to where I became a very like just stoic person. Especially when I got more time to myself, like when I was in the military and spent a lot of time with myself, I found that a lot of shit ain't really worth it, right? To all those peaks and valleys of emotions, to all that sadness, that anger, right? So I really tried to keep it level. Don't get me wrong, there are things that piss me off. There are things that piss me off that I'm still working through and learning why they piss me off.
You should feel every emotion, by
yeah,
the way.
so
You should, by the way. It's very healthy.
So I kept that stoicism for a while. Then I had a son, right? With that, just the experience of seeing him born in itself brings out emotions in that time that I really didn't feel or express in a long time. And since then, I've been very conscious. Like, he has not seen me cry, but I have learned the power of releasing, because I may not cry often, but when I do, it's because I know that I need to. Yes. I know that there is a blockage going on. I know that something is going on where I'm either not thinking straight, it's something, and I just have to get it out. And sometimes I'll just sit there and I cry weird, bro. I'm silent as fuck. Like, them tears would just roll down. Them tears would just run down my face,
You're
bro.
not used to doing that. You've been bottling
it ain't
emotion like that.
So it's not like boo-hooing or not. It's just I'll sit down and tears will run down my eyes.
What did Andre say? Do you cry in tune?
I actually have.
It's not. That's not. It's.
Yeah, but I feel like
it's natural.
So in turn, I think one, it just made me more. Like, I just wanted to be very emotionally intelligent and handle myself well across many situations. I'm one that I've gotten like horrible news and I've been able to keep my composure. Like, I learned on a deployment that a friend died, right? And then not a month later that my uncle had passed. And I still had to work. Yeah. Like, I'm on deployment. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I had to kind of put those emotions down, do what I needed to do, find time and space to go release later on. But I've gotten very well at managing my emotions in that time. I will say that I still don't process death normally. And what I mean by that is like it's
there's no normal way.
Yeah, it's for me. It's like the stages people talk about. Like, for me, that's fucking It's just, once I make sense of what happened, I start just working my hardest to accept it, and then working to continue their name on and live through the memories we created and things that I don't like. There's a few, like, there was one time, I mean, with my grandfather, I cried when my son was born, because my girl was like 6-7 months pregnant. And I'm like, damn, he's not gonna get a chance to meet her, to meet our son. And I had just realized that he had passed the previous July, 2019. Right, my son was born September 2020. So around July-ish, right, of 2020, about a year or so after, it finally hit me like, damn, he ain't never gonna meet my son. And let out a few tears for that, but I didn't cry when he died. It took me like a year
to figure.
yeah.
I'm like that too. I'm a late processor. I'm kind of like which I'm okay with that because
I want to ask, do
not
you feel like it's because you are someone people are going to lean on when shit like that happens?
Yes.
And you so same.
I'm gonna be the one in my family like. I grieve on the back end.
Yeah.
You know, like
I let everybody else.
which honestly, while we talk about our fathers and their emotional capacity and how they handle things, I'm so glad that there was a sense of stoicism there, or a sense of like, I want to call it staleness, right? But it's not that. But there's this rock foundation that's there, that no matter how hard the wind blows, that house will not be blown down.
Yeah.
Like what? And a lot of that is how I have been able to thrive this long, right? And so I say that to say, like, while it may seem like a con in some aspects, like a downfall in some aspects that they didn't show that emotion, I think it has been really, really good for me too, because the leader that I am, like people have. They're gonna lean on me, and so it's not to say that I don't get to be sad in that moment, but I also really appreciate the fact that like I have this ability to like get business done
and be strong in this moment.
I'm gonna get business
the world
done. Like
needs leaders and people to lean on. Too,
it's like I'm gonna do the business first, and I'm gonna grieve later.
Yeah.
But that's not gonna exclude the grieving. It's gonna be there, like
just at a later time.
Just at a
Because
later time.
To your point is like, I feel the same way. Like when bad news is given, I'm probably gonna be the last person to cry, because I'm making time and space for y'all to feel how you feel, and for me to be that rock for y'all, right?
But the most important thing to know is that how and when to find that place for yourself.
So that's something I've learned recently, is making that time to still grieve myself, instead of being that rock for everybody else, and then kind of continuing to push down that emotion so far that it's gonna be a while before they start to surface back up. But when it does, boy, boy,
and you have to be on. Like, I'm the type of person, you're gonna have to. A tragedy can happen. I'm good now. Ask me 2 months later, am I good?
Right.
Because I'm gonna make sure that my family is good first. I'm gonna make sure that business is taken care of first. Like, I'll cry at the end of this. You know, I've gotten there and really, really good at that. And so I guess, like, segueing, not like taking the question from you or anything, Eury, but I guess I also want to ask, like, do you feel like the experiences that you've had with your fathers, and where they have been in your life, does that affect your masculinity today? And
Yes.
like, and what is it, and what are you trying to change about how you perceive masculinity based off of what you were taught?
Just see it as more dynamic.
Yeah.
Because I feel like our fathers and grandfathers, we have to understand that it's a new day. It's a different time. The way society works and functions now is way different than what they grew up in. They don't have nearly the information. What they did was based purely off survival.
How to survive is different from how we have.
Exactly, right? So I think maybe being more dynamic, more open-minded, two things. Because I grew up in I would say a traditional, right? Like my mom, she was a stay-at-home mom when we moved to PA, and she, like, until my sister, went off to college and everything. And my dad, he brought home the bacon and things like that. So just being more dynamic in the way I approach how I want to raise, my family. It definitely shaped me, though, as a man, because, like I said, I was able to see a leader. I was able to see somebody that was a father figure to others outside of me and my sister. Like, we had cousins calling him, like, dad. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, people that, hey, I need to talk to you real quick. Do you have a second? Like, people, like, you know what I'm saying? So just seeing that type of example, like, the bad is the bad. That's on us when we're old enough to shed that shit at the end of the day. And for anybody listening, like, when you know better, you have a choice to make, whether you want to continue the bad that you've witnessed or you've gotten from your fathers, your uncles, whoever, or if you want to kind of change that path for yourself. And I think all of us have done that here. We just took what we felt was best for us at that time, you know, and there's still things that I've learned from my father that at the time it probably didn't serve me, you know, because I wasn't in a position that he was in. But now that I think back on it, I'm like, okay, yeah, I can pick that up now, right? So it's really just shedding all the bad, all the negative that I don't feel like it resonates with me or the man that I want to become. Yeah. But just instilling all the good, the work ethic, just how he made sure we never went without. We never felt none of the shit he felt. We never felt none of the shit he felt, right? And that's because he provided such a large enough shield and protection that we still felt good even when we weren't. And y'all talked about risk taking. I would say my parents as a whole, but just them, like they inspired the way I take risks. One, coming to this country without knowing the language.
Oh, your parents didn't know the language when they came in?
No.
Wow, I didn't know that.
No. So they
Latinos take some huge risks, bro.
Yeah.
Like life-wise.
Yeah. Like they be
They
full
migrating.
tilt, boy.
They migrate.
So
like, for real.
came here, didn't know the language in the early to mid 1980s. You know, finished schooling to the high school level, went and found jobs. But I say all that to say is like they took risks continuously to one, get us a better life. They took a risk to move us out of the neighborhood where our family grew up in New Jersey, where it's safe, where we feel like, hey, you know, we could drop our kid off here so he could get dinner. We could drop him off here so he could get babysat, whatever. Moved us to Pennsylvania because they wanted us to see more than what was in Jersey and what was in that particular area. They wanted us to get exposure to like more wealth, I would say. You know, families that are in a different class. And that exposure helped. You know what I'm saying? But just the risk that they took without fear about what anybody cared. Yeah. Because that's what they wanted for them and their family. I carry that shit with me to this day.
I like that where you use dynamic. Yeah, that's good. That's really, really good. What about you, Mars?
I like that word too. Just kind of basically adding the healthy things to my toolbox. You know, I think that most other people would think they add automatically is the healthy things, but no, it's more so just what you like, what twinkles the most, what's shiny. So, and kind of realizing that I can step back from my old ideals, my old thoughts and kind of behaviors is the biggest thing, you know. But being able to be like hold myself accountable when I see those behaviors pop up in myself, you know, like I guess like my anger too, like not being able to express that the right way. My sadness, not being able to express that the more healthy way. And there's no right or wrong way for people to express it. Just healthy and unhealthy way for them to express it individually. You see what I'm saying? So one thing that you did say was you need a community. And sometimes I feel like right now, as I'm learning how to do this, I need a community. And that's why I see you, bro. It's so dope. And we welcome all parties. And we started this podcast for more outreach so people can understand that community is very important.
Very.
It's important to masculinity in general. Yeah.
Exactly. Because once I felt more masculine in this safe space than I have ever been, because I'm more sure of myself. I'm more accepting of my unhealthy behaviors because I'm like, all right, now I know how to tackle these unhealthy
behaviors.
Bishop. You know what I mean? And now I know how to kind of mold those into healthy, you know, behaviors. And so it's way more powerful when I'm learning how to release as a group so that way when I'm able to, I'm starting now to be able to do it by myself.
Yeah, and I think we're like we're growing in real time too.
It's faster than real time.
You know what I'm saying? So
seeing 3 experiences is crazy fast.
But like even going from that, like I continue to elevate the standard at which I want to hold myself to, because I'm like, yeah, I need to cut this. This, like, I'm better than this. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like I continue to raise the bar for myself, as a person, as a man, and just continuing to just shed anything that doesn't resonate with who I'm trying to become. So, like,
I'm gonna be really, really short in regards to masculinity. The one thing that I really, really want to keep and take from our like fathers, and I know we talked about again like the stoicism and them not really showing any emotions, right? Like, and we know that there are bad parts of that, but the good part about that I do want to keep is that I love solid men. Regardless of who you are, what kind of man you are, what you like, I love a solid man. And that's one of my favorite things about me, right? And even in my not great moments, like, I love how that I'm able to have a conversation with you and look you straight in your face and say, this is where I am. You know, like, this is, I can still provide, I can still show up this way. Like, that's my favorite part about masculinity, is just this innate ability to do things and to do hard things. And so I'm going to keep that, right? One of the things that I want to invite more into how I view masculinity is how dynamic men get to be. You know, how dynamic men of color get to be. Like, I hear you talk about them taking that risk, right, and leaving, right? We're able to do those things. And so masculinity, my masculinity is like, has been shaped by stoic men, but like, those stoic men are the reason why that I get shit done, right? And that you're gonna call me to make sure that, like, you can call me. You can be confident to call me. That even
to
if
know some
to
shit
know
gonna get done.
it don't matter how it's gonna get done. He might not be good, but he's gonna get it done, right?
Oh,
But
yeah.
like the other
That's
part,
one thing about, like, not to cut you off, but when people keep calling you, I was like, yo, I gotta take it as a compliment, because that means people know I'm gonna get shit done.
Yeah.
But also, it's in that part, and I'm gonna close out on this part. In that part, if that's you, right? It's also your responsibility to show the other side of what it looks like to carry that burden. Because there are men like behind you that you're responsible for. For me, being a black man in a mostly predominantly white spaces, and really just the only man of color of who I am, it's important that I show you, like, how to treat the person that comes after me. Yes, he's great. He can do everything, but should you be requesting him to do everything? Should you be giving him space to be a little bit more than what you've assigned to him?
Just ask, hey, what do you need?
What do you need? What do you ask? Ask him, what do you need?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm inviting into my masculinity, asking myself what I need.
Yeah.
And so I guess that wraps up episode 3. I thought that was 6. Episode 3, that was. Yeah, shout out to episode 3. Masculinity and fatherhood.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in, yo.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep it black, and I'm gonna keep it brief, as Lene would say. I love her. What? Listen, y'all. Thank you for tuning in to the I See You Bro podcast, a space dedicated to men of color, and a space dedicated to developing through the crap. I always say it, if you love a black man, if you know a black man, if you got black brothers, black friends, this is the podcast for you. If you too rigid and you can't really get with it, get lost. I'm 1/3.
Come back at another time.
Yeah, come back at another time. I'm 1/3 of the collective Brenten.
And it's number 1 Misfit Mars. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. Just tell your people about us, man.
Spin that.
Yeah,
Tremaine, can you insert spin that? Spin that shit. Okay, copyright.
Yeah, and this is Eury. Just we appreciate y'all tuning in, man. But please leave a comment below, sharing a little bit about your experience, sharing what you relate to, because we have 3 very, very, very different experiences here, talking about subjects like this. So we want to know who you resonate with, why, what your experience looks like, and how you've grown from that. But I'll cut it short. We're out. I didn't know what to say at the end, so you could cut this out too.
I like that part. We out.
we out.
I actually like that, though. I didn't know what to say, so we just
That was a
going
good
to here.
I don't know what else.